Thanks everyone. We just broke the ice and we got a chance to see who each other is, which is great. So we're going to get into our conversation for today with council member and candidate to county executive Hans Riemer. So Hans Riemer was first elected to the Montgomery County Council in 2010 as an at-large member representing the entire county. Hans has been leading the council to enact new initiatives for economic development and small business, housing, education, and more. He has co-authored legislation to create the county's Business Advancement Group, a crucial resource for small businesses, and has championed the cause of small businesses in Wheaton, which have been affected by construction projects. Hans has pushed for more funding for organizations such as the Maryland Small Business Development Center and the Latino Economic Development Center to provide business assistance. He is a strong voice for the county to become more competitive in creating jobs in the region in order to foster a stronger business environment for everyone. He also led the fight for 5G wireless transportation investments on 270 and the American Legion Bridge, among numerous other economic development reforms. And I'm sure I've left a lot out here, Hans, but bienvenido. Welcome and thank you for being with us today.
Thank you so much for the invitation. I'm really excited to get a chance to share some information with you and hear some feedback and get some thoughts. And we are, debuting our small business policy agenda with you today. So I'm looking forward to getting your comments back on it as we will continue to improve it and develop it over the course of this campaign, which is now beginning to really take shape. So it's a great time for us to be together. We're about 6 months out from the election. Thanks again for the introductions. As you mentioned, I'm here joined by Renee Sproul, my advisor, who has a long history in small business in Maryland and in Montgomery County, and can certainly be a resource for you. She also works in my council office, and if there's a way that we can be helpful to you in access to county resources or services, please also don't hesitate to ask us for some guidance. So I'm going to try to share my screen now. I prepared a presentation, as I said, you saw it here first. So now I need to see if I can share my screen. Here we go. Oh, is it possible to enable screen sharing?
Okay. Yes, we can. 1 second.
Okay.
Okay, you should be able to share the screen now.
Got it. And all right. Does that work?
Yay.
Yep.
All right. Well, thank you. Here we go. So a little background on myself. Grew up in California. My parents are small business owners. They work in the financial services sector, providing investment advice for small businesses and pensions and things like that. Growing up, I learned about hard work by working hauling bricks and moving dirt on construction sites, home renovation, and working in restaurants, working in high-end pizza and other kinds of line cook experiences. So got started on the right foot, like I said, knowing what hard work is all about. After college, I founded a nonprofit organization that I ran and I raised funding for, and we had 4 or 5 staff and had to make payroll with my development efforts. So not quite the same thing as the businesses that obviously are in the private sector, but all the same have had to keep people on payroll and know what that's like to feel like, hey, you got to bring the money in, and people got families to feed. Although, of course, the folks who worked for me at that time were all quite young. I, in my political career, ran campaigns to stop the privatization of Social Security, to ensure that Social Security will be there for the future, to organize young voters, to work with seniors. And I'm a political organizer. It's what I believe in. I worked for Barack Obama. In 2007, I was the youth vote director for the Obama campaign, helping to propel his victories in the early primaries, which of course catapulted him to success in the election. I've got two boys, Henry and Travis, and my wife Angela, and here we are getting our ugly Christmas sweaters, getting our Christmas tree this year. And of course, they're students in MCPS, and we're grappling with all those issues as everyone else is. Just for a little context, my overall plan for economic growth, of course, is on my website at hansriemer.com. But a number of the key elements that I'll just run through very quickly. Housing, we've got to have more housing. We have a housing shortage. It really makes it difficult for the workforce to be here. Not having new housing means we're not getting new investment in our communities. We're not getting the benefit of new development and progress and change. So we've got to have stronger housing policies, and we've got to expand our transportation infrastructure. It was mentioned earlier, my work to try to bring a transit funding component to the American Legion Bridge expansion so that we can be better connected to Virginia. We have to be connected to that economy if we're going to thrive here in Montgomery County. We don't want to be locked out of all of that economic activity. I'm a huge believer in creating walkable urban areas all up and down the Purple Line and the Red Line corridors. And I think that's really a big future for us, is having vibrant urban areas served by public transportation, where restaurants and stores and retail and companies and startups and all kinds of business services want to be, having a great quality of life in a dynamic environment. That's the future I want for Montgomery County, and that's really a lot of what my campaign is about. I'm very focused on talent pipelines, and Azita, I'd love to know more about your business, because, I think that we need to boost our talent pipeline so that our companies can grow here, so that they can have the workforce that they need. And then B, we need to create the talent pipeline so that every kid in this county has access to those jobs, and so that people can accelerate their own careers, and so that we can live in a community that has opportunity for all. And that's what I think talent pipeline strategies can really do. The Purple Line corridor is something I've been really focused on, getting the University of Maryland better connected into Montgomery County with NOAA and NIH and Bethesda, and building a corridor all up and down, all along the Purple Line that has affordable housing, walkable, bikeable landscape where, people want to be, young workers will want to live, and we can really drive a lot of progress and change. I know our economy has slowed down in recent years. We have fewer private sector jobs today than we used to have even 10 years ago. And that's because of these bigger trends with Virginia. But I also think we have the ability to change that. And we've got NIH and NIST and FDA and NOAA. That's the Harvard, the MIT, the Stanford for Montgomery County. And we need to leverage those research organizations to create economic impact, startups, entrepreneurship. And finally, we've got to make small business our business. We have to make sure that when we have programs, that small businesses are included and they're getting the benefit of county investment. And that's what I'm going to talk about for the rest of this presentation. A little bit of background, some of the existing resources that I know you're familiar with. If you go to the county's website today, it says small business is big business. It mentions that 95% of county businesses are smaller than 50 employees. Carmen mentioned the history of the business advancement team, which Councilmember Berliner and I created when we were creating MCEDC. We were concerned that MCEDC wouldn't be the right place for county small businesses to get access to county services, to get help with permitting or licensing. And so we created the business advancement team in order to be that solutions group for them. We have a navigator and a business liaison today, and there's been a lot of programs that we've been building, the MOVE grants, which provide a share of your first lease, COVID business rental assistance, the local production fund, which I created, that supported local businesses pivoting during the beginning of the pandemic to making masks or PPE, providing them with grants to do that. We, of course, did the COVID emergency business grants and reopening Montgomery grants. So there's been a lot of action at the council. But we're not doing nearly enough. Generally speaking, I think we don't have the kind of commitment to small business and the growth of small business that we need. And so that's one of the key issues for my campaign. So first of all, I would love to work with you to change the culture of Montgomery County government. And I tried to see how that's embodied by saying, it's not that small business is big business, it's that small business is our business, that every Montgomery County department has a role in supporting the community and helping our local businesses succeed. And we need our county teams, our county departments, to think about how to get to yes, to focus on solutions with our constituents, with the business community, to help them succeed. And not saying no, not finding excuses, but again, treating businesses like valued customers, and then supporting them with valuable advice and solutions. So that is a culture change that I would like to drive through the organization. And having information on the website is good, but it's not enough. We need to make county support for small businesses a county-wide priority. It has to be integrated into all of our programs. And we need to drive a culture change throughout our departments, and we need to reorganize and strengthen our small business office. I would love to see, and I will create a team that reports directly to the county executive to support small business, not having that team sort of buried in different layers, but actually have them with a seat at the table, a cabinet level seat in the county's operational, functionality. So again, expanding the scope and the number of employees who work for small business support teams, and again, bringing more value and more support. Focusing on improving our communications and doing everything we can to be competent in different languages, and helping business owners who come from all different kinds of backgrounds, and ensuring that our departments are communicating effectively. I believe we've got to be data driven. We have to create information and share it tailored to different business needs in their life cycle. And they're distinct. You've got businesses that have different needs if they're pre-venture or startup or in the growth stage or at the maturity stage. And, we have different kinds of businesses that serve those businesses, and we need to know what those are, and we need to be able to respond appropriately and provide support for their needs. So in order to do that, we've got to focus on helping with capital and helping with contracts and helping with coaching and consulting. So some of the ways that I would love to bring that to reality. First, I want to create an MFD entrepreneurship incubator in the Silver Spring Center. We have a great space in Silver Spring. It's underutilized, and it's time for us to invest in programs that are targeted towards the needs of entrepreneurs from MFD backgrounds. It's not enough to just have life sciences or technology. We've really got to help everyone to start a business. And I think we can help achieve that with more management and technical and procurement assistance. So, for example, I'm a huge fan of LEDC. I think they do terrific work. I've also worked a lot with, over the years, the SBDC, where actually Renee comes from, the Small Business Development Center. And I'd like to expand the funding that we provide for coaching and consulting to create a bilingual Hispanic business center through SBDC here, to provide training through an accelerator here. And then also procurement. I think a lot of businesses need help with procurement. That's technical. It's at the federal, state, and the county level. And we should provide more support for assistance programs in to consult with small businesses in the procurement process to help them compete, because it doesn't do any good if a business doesn't know how to get into the competition pool for procurement. So I'd like to do that. We're working on creating a new financial institution, a CDFI, to provide additional financing for local startup businesses. We are working to create databases of minority-owned businesses in order to be able to better communicate about opportunities with them. We're working on funding initiatives through what's called Main Street programs for locations, communities like Wheaton, which is the iconic headquarters of so many Hispanic businesses in Montgomery County, Long Branch, Germantown, Silver Spring. Next, I want to focus on procurement and work with our partners at the public schools and the college, HOC, Parks and Planning, to expand their use of our procurement procedures so that basically local businesses have a better chance to get access to their contracts. They don't do enough on supporting local business with their procurement, and they spend a lot of money. The school system is half the county budget. We need to do a better job working with those larger organizations so that local business is part of their procurement mission. And I'd like to achieve that. So that concludes my brief presentation. And now I will turn it back to
me.
Carmen.
Hi. Thank you very much for that presentation. Some of it is old news, some of it is new news, so I'm glad to see it both. I am really, I think we're very grateful and excited for the work you've done in support of a better economic development program in Montgomery County. So appreciate that. One of the things that, so we're going to focus a little bit on your candidacy for the county executive position, right? So one of the questions that people say, well, if Hans comes in and becomes the county executive, what would he do? What are his priorities that would make a difference to this county so we can move forward as we recover from the COVID, as we look at ways to do things differently and better? So what are the key, let's say, key top 3 things that you would do, not just, and it could be in any of the sectors that you would like to mention, because obviously there are needs in every sector, and it's all of one piece.
Sure. Thank you. Great question. So first of all, overall, I want to help this county envision a different future that is dynamic and growing and changing. And I think that is a kind of broad vision of our future that is not necessarily shared by Mark Elrich. Our county executive wants us to continue to be a suburban area that is quiet and doesn't change that much. And what's happening now, as you know better than most, is all economic activity in the Washington region is going to Virginia. And it's harder and harder for our community members to get access to opportunities, to succeed with their businesses, to get great jobs, to get companies to provide services to companies. There's fewer companies here. All the companies are over there. So we have to get focused on economic development. And that covers a lot of different areas. It's housing, it's transportation, it's technology, it's the business services that I mentioned, it's education, it's higher education. It's all of these things. And we've got to make that a priority. We've got to help our community embrace change and embrace the future. And first of all, I think that is something I can do. I think I can help with that. And I believe that, I stand for that. And if I win, people will feel that, we're making progress towards that goal. So first of all, again, economic development, and I've talked a lot about the different program areas. Secondly, education. I am so concerned about the negative impacts on kids of the last couple of years, especially. We know that virtual learning is not learning for a lot of kids, and they have not made the progress that they used to make on reading and math and writing and all of those core subject areas. So, I want to lead our community to make big investments in schools and help those kids who have particularly fallen behind and aren't making the progress that they need to. And I'm a strong believer in in-person education. I can't believe I have to say that, but I think school is in person, and we've got to create after-school programs and childcare programs. We've got to help kids throughout all the, help families, help kids throughout their whole life. So that's a big topic for me. Housing is another key area. I chair the housing committee, and I've been working hard to reform housing policies that have been stopping new housing from being built in this county. We used to build about 5,000 units of housing every year, and now we're building about 2,500. So that when you don't build enough housing year after year, you get a housing shortage, and then the price of housing becomes really expensive, and then your workforce can't afford to live there. So I've been working on a lot of housing policies. We got rid of the housing moratorium, which was literally stopping new housing from being built. We created accessory dwelling units. We have allowed through zoning more housing to be added in places like the Veers Mill corridor area or on Rockville Pike. So, we've got a lot more to do to fund affordable housing and just all new housing at all, frankly, all income levels. But that's a major priority for me. So,
Okay.
Jobs, schools, housing.
Great. So I think that's all very exciting. So one of the things that we think would in fact promote a more vibrant Montgomery County is to have, and of course with the COVID, it's been kind of difficult, right? But maybe there are some ways we can think about it, but to make this more of a center for community action and interactions, that it's not all big box stores, but that there are these little town centers, that it's not just big box stores and a couple of small shops, but actually literally some of the things that you find in Virginia, where you can walk down the street, and have, one after the other of small shops and coffee shops in some of the towns around Northern Virginia that are really interesting, attract a lot of young people. And that makes it more of a nightlife and more of an activity and things like that, especially if you inject in it some of the technology kind of shops and businesses. So I think that we're hopeful that there'll be more of an inclination to do that sort of activity, because a lot of times people think, oh, Montgomery County, just think about the big, large companies or the big projects, which is great because they'll bring in jobs, they'll bring in money. But I think that then also they will go away if they don't see that vibrant Montgomery County as well. So it's, like I said, it's all of one piece. I want to ask you a little bit about, we've heard a lot about supporting minority and female-owned businesses here, but there really hasn't been a very strong, there seems to be a lot of talk, but not a lot of walk, right? So wanted to know if, and I think you mentioned some of the things that we're doing, but we'd like there to be more highlighting of the minority and women-owned small businesses that are successful or that achieve, maybe they're not always, but they achieve something great, to have more of a county presence in some of these things, maybe a recognition or a visit or an award or talk it up, we'd like to see a little bit more of that, because that helps our businesses be noticed. And maybe, a lot of the small businesses, they don't know how to do the public relations thing of putting those ads in to say, hey, we won this contract, but maybe the county can help with some of that promotion as well. Is that something that you think we could be part of your program to promote the fact that we have some great small businesses here?
Absolutely. And I think that starts with actually knowing who the businesses are, helping to create that database so that those businesses are able to receive information about county programs. I mentioned the MFD incubator space. I don't know why we shouldn't have a thriving, bustling, exciting place where small business startups from business owners in MFD community backgrounds don't, aren't all there. Like, let's do that. Silver Spring would be a great location to do that with. And right now, the incubator there is very quiet. It's underutilized. So I'm actually going to be doing that now. We're working on that. We're working on funding that now in the budget, and we're hoping to get that started up this year. So it's more than really a campaign idea. It's actually something I'm hoping we'll be able to execute now. So,
and I think the chamber would like to participate in that and maybe have a presence there so that we can run our programs from there, or, have some significant piece of, moving that development of programs, because our businesses aren't just the startups, right? Our businesses are also those like Jennifer's business or Raul's business or my business that have done a little bit already, and 30 or 40 years of it already, but that should be brought up and recognized, right?
Yes.
And we still need that help. We need that social network, and we need that social capital, and getting, a lot of times business opportunities come up with, you tell somebody, hey, did you know I know this business that I met that does this, and you are saying that you need that. So we need people at the top that help connect the dots. And so I think that any program that you do has to have some component of saying, hey, Jennifer's company here's a good company that can do that, or that kind of thing. Or
and I think that can come with, driving the culture change through the department, so that the staff in many different departments, see it as part of their job to help a business owner like Jennifer get access to resources or get highlighted. And, absolutely, veteran owned is a big part of the mission here. And I think this county should be known as a place where veterans come and succeed with starting up businesses. I know the county chamber also works on that a bit, and I think there's got to be a lot more opportunities for us to work with you to make that possible.
Yeah, that's great. And one last question, because I know other people have some questions here as well. I'm just going to ask you, what's the deal with Purple Line? Because it was supposed to be where we could provide, we've had subcontracting opportunities, or we had, work opportunities, jobs and subcontracting opportunities. And now it's all at a standstill. Looks like it's all at a standstill forever. And just on the tails of that, even though 270 bridge is happening, the people in charge of the small business subcontracting, even though we were, as a chamber, we were partners with that, the actually allocation of who's going to do what is handled by somebody in Prince George's County. And I just want to make sure Montgomery County is part of that.
Yeah, well, the Purple Line, finally, they are getting back, they're getting it moving again.
Oh,
so it's
really?
It's now about 4 years, delayed from when it was supposed to open. But the state has selected a new contractor, and they are finalizing their documents, and they will begin large-scale construction again in February, I believe. And it should be open in 2026. So it's good to have a timeline. We have to act urgently now to help maximize the potential of the Purple Line. I mean, it could be amazing to have the Purple Line coming through Langley Park and Long Branch and Silver Spring, and then on over to Bethesda, connected with the University of Maryland. And there's just so much possibility there to create that vibrant, small business friendly area. But, we've got to make investments. So I want to make housing investments, and I want to prioritize changing roads so that they're safe and they're walkable and they're bikeable. And, small business assistance with the Main Street programs I mentioned that provide grants and technical assistance in Long Branch and in downtown Silver Spring, so that the Purple Line can be both an economic engine, a technology focused corridor that companies come to and they want to be in, and a place that small business thrives and the workforce can afford to live. That's my real goal, is that it can serve everyone and not just become, anyway, it can serve everyone. So it's a huge priority for me, and getting it done right is crucial. It's why I've been fighting. The county executive keeps trying to degrade a lot of the infrastructure, not have a tunnel into Bethesda, not prioritize the funding for the streetscapes in Silver Spring. And, we've got to get all that stuff built so that the Purple Line can really achieve its full potential.
Agreed. Questions from the folks. Mauricio, you had a question, or Azita, I don't know if you had a question. Questions? Carlos, you have a question?
I have a bunch of them, but I wanted to ask. I guess I want to get to an underlying comment that Carmen made earlier, which I think a lot of us are fully aware of, which is to do with there's a lot of talk, but not a lot of walk. You're talking about an initiative where you say you want to change the culture of the offices or the areas which help the small businesses. How do you give us an idea of how that is, how you envision that to happen, for one, and along those lines, you say there are a couple of your ideas was, we're going to build this database and we're going to build these other initiatives, all of which have been there for years. I mean, I've been in a bunch of databases at the small business office for, over 10 years. And I've never done a single piece of business with the county because of multiple of the things that I'm sure you're aware of. But I'm curious to hear how you envision this to happen, and how do you declare success for those priorities?
Great question. Well, changing the culture of departments, I think, starts at the top. You've got to have department directors who share the vision and work to make it happen. And, I don't think we have that now. And I think we could have that if I can attract great people to come in and work at the department and send the word in through all the staff that, like, hey, we're solutions oriented. We're helping people get to yes. And I'm not gonna like punish you if you're trying to do the right thing and you're trying to come up with a solution and, there's a little friction. Like, I would rather have you, working hard to support and create value for the small businesses than following every, procedure by the book to the last, dotting the last I. So I think that is a departmental leadership driven cultural change that could be obviously manifested with different kinds of ways to socialize that through the organization, creating campaigns within the workforce to understand and embrace the vision. As for the databases and so forth, I think that, your comment that you haven't had county business despite being in the databases, it could be that is related more to the initiative that we are looking at around procurement assistance. I mean, you've been in a database. Have you had access to the kind of expert help to understand where procurement opportunities really are in the county, at the state, and at the federal level? And I think that, I hear that that's an area where we are a little bit, we're coming up short, providing with that procurement technical assistance. I would invite Renee, if you'd like to, add any comment here.
Thank you. I don't know if can you hear me?
Yes.
Am I on? Okay. I don't know if you can see me bursting at the seams, but yes, I would love to, because again, and not to brag at all, but I'm speaking from what I've seen as success, and what has worked before, I firmly believe will continue to work. It starts with what Hans said. Before SBDC, I was the head small business person at the Defense Department several years back under the Carter administration. And I reported to the Deputy Secretary of Defense. Charles Duncan of Duncan Hines. I could not have done my job without his full support. But the president had said that he wanted to see minority enterprise improve. And that's when women's business came into its being. And it was done. It was mentioned in staff meetings. It became a part of the procurement officers, your evaluation, employment evaluation. This is the kind of thing that I would like to see repeated in Montgomery County. And Hans and I have talked about this, and he is committed. That's why we're saying the office should report to him. Nobody else. It should report to him. So the director of procurement will report to Hans, and the director of finance. We were talking about property management. We had a client who contacted the office. I think he contacted all of the councilmen. She contacted all of the councilmen to say she could not get any attention. She has a property management firm. And the first thing we did was to get in touch with procurement, and several different departments were involved, and everybody uncovered a lot of information. We saw where some things could have been done better. She ended up being satisfied because now she is, quote unquote, in the system. She understands how they buy and what she has to prepare for. It really is a matter of priorities, and it really is a matter of culture change, not just words, but it has to be done. One last thing, I will say, Carmen may remember the Northeast Corridor Improvement Project. Do you remember that, Carmen?
Yes.
That was the first. That was the improvement of the railroad lines from the Northeast Corridors from Boston to DC.
Right.
And it was the first government contract that had minority business gold, and it was a 15% gold. And the gentleman who was the head of the Department of Transportation at the time talked to the project manager and said, I want to achieve this 15%. And I was hired by the firm that was hired to make sure that this happened. We succeeded the 15% in getting minority participation. But again, it was because the minority business office, small and minority business office, was involved in every aspect from requisitions, program requirements. It wasn't just at the last minute when the solicitation hits the street. So it's involvement and commitment by everyone. And you're right, a lot has not happened as far as data, and then I'll turn it back over.
So I just want to make a comment about that. I know that some of it is learning how to identify the opportunities and bid on it, but I think some people just need some help on it. I know the chamber does a lot of that. But I think also in the local small business reserve program, they're limited to what the buyers are willing to publish on the local small business reserve. So to Carlos's point, and to your point, Hans, is unless you have a culture change where the different departments in the government, in the county government, are on board, that we have some very capable small businesses and small disadvantaged businesses. It's just having to come from the top where that makes a difference, to the county, and that it's okay to let a contract out, or maybe like, the federal government does something called an RFI. And what that is sending out a message that says, we have this $3 million contract to do this. We want to reestablish our networks or whatever it is. Who out there has the capabilities to do this? This is what our requirement is. How would you respond to something like this? And then you get responses saying yes. And then you ask them to identify whether they're woman-owned or minority-owned or whatever. That RFI doesn't commit the government to giving that contract to those people, but it's a way of surveying who has these capabilities within that small and disadvantaged community. So you might think of doing something like that, because the local small business reserve does not provide very much of variety and the kinds of things, right, Carlos?
Yeah, well,
I just want to add one more thing to that. An example of that is when the buyer is the last station on the track. When it gets to the buyer, the decisions have been made most of the time, even down to who's going to bid on and who's most likely to succeed. If the evaluation of a buyer's job success has a 10%, a 5%, whatever the percentage is, inclusion in there for your minority business participation and the role that you played in that, there's a tremendous incentive for them to do more. And that, again, is where the culture change comes in. You got to follow that up with some action. And I think that that's the type of thing that we're talking about doing.
If I may add, just to, I guess, kind of expand or give a little bit more context to some of the points that are being made, because they're very important, I think.
Sure.
And that is on the side of assistance. We got tons and tons of small businesses in these areas. The people that are bringing up these businesses are experts in what they do. They do a great job. You got a bunch of, food trucks that are very successful. Now, when you get from the point of a small business wanting to serve or wanting to go compete for businesses with the government, there's a huge gap there whereby the business owner, not to the detriment of the business owner, but the business owner is worried about the day-to-day stuff that they have to do. How are they going to make payroll? They don't know what to do with the 50 million forms that you got delivered when there's an opportunity for some minor revenue that may be achieved. So the process itself is extremely onerous for the small businesses. There's the type of opportunities, and I look at them on a regular basis because I do a lot of business with the federal government as well. And some of those requirements that come through for small businesses are extremely onerous. People don't want to compete. People don't want to go participate because they may not know how to, because what they do is they're really good at, cooking and selling pupusas.
Right.
They don't know about the forms that you need to do and what kind of protection or the insurance or these clauses, and all of those things are what detract from businesses that could be capable of participating from doing so. So those.
Thank you so much, because you're emphasizing the importance of something that, I think is really important, which is, if I understand you correctly, it's technical assistance to the entrepreneurs. Like, don't put the burden on the entrepreneur who's running a business to figure out how to create a new business for themselves, contracting with county government. Provide support to help them accelerate so that they'll even want to get started. That's and that's a program we want to fund. The Maryland Small Business Center does that procurement assistance. They don't do it as much in Montgomery County as they can, and so we can add funding so that there are dedicated positions whose their only job is to work with local small businesses to help them understand how to succeed in that process. Right.
And I'm going to take the liberty of being the host to move this on, just because I know Hans has a very limited time frame here. So I wanted to thank you for that, Carlos, because I think that's an important thing. But I think we could probably have a forum on that.
And I'm happy to have a slight conversation with Hans if he wishes to hear more about it.
Yeah. And then Mauricio, you had a question, and then I think if Asida, or I guess who else has a question, I'm not sure. You guys have written a lot on the chat, but Mauricio, I know you had raised your hand to me and had a question.
Yeah, there's Hence, one of the things you mentioned is the housing crisis. And for sure, we have the numbers of about 9,000 people moving to Montgomery County every year. And the housing, it's about 2,700 units per year. But we're concerned about the high eviction rates that are likely to appear as we recover from COVID and we go back to normal, so to speak. What actions do you plan to put in place? What strategies do you envision as county executive to prevent these high evictions.
Yeah. Thank you. That's been a major focus for our work at the Housing Committee throughout COVID. And we have put in place a whole lot of different protections for tenants, starting with rental assistance to help any tenant affected by COVID, help them clear their unpaid rent. And we have millions of dollars. I think we've spent maybe $50 million so far. We have more coming, probably another $20, $30 million coming this year. So really, actually, any tenant who is affected by COVID, job loss from COVID or loss of income from COVID, they should be able to get access to rental assistance funding, and then work with, the county and the tenant and the property owner work together to relieve the unpaid rent. And so they should not face eviction. I think we have enough money to meet that need. Where we're having trouble is a lot of folks aren't applying. So we need to work with community organizations to get the word out that you should not be evicted, because there is help for you. If you owe your landlord thousands of dollars, we could actually help you take care of that. I also think legal assistance is crucial. Folks often don't show up to court, or they show up to court and the property owner has a lawyer and the tenant does not. And so I've been working to increase funding for tenants, have a staff person there in the court. And when that tenant walks in, they can actually have someone there to help them know what their rights are. So far, it's working. So far, evictions are below the pre-pandemic level. There has not been the wave of evictions that a lot of us were concerned would come. But obviously, we've got a long way to go. I have also supported the limiting rent increases to inflation during the pandemic, and that is continuing now through March. So there's a lot of tools that we can use, but I'll just say, generally speaking, it's a big priority for me, and I think I've been doing everything I can, and I claim credit, frankly, for a lot of the initiatives that we are doing in the county right now. I think the county's doing a pretty good job here, but we can do better and we can do more, and I will definitely work on that. If you want, Jennifer, you've asked where's the information. If you search Montgomery County COVID rental assistance, it's going to take you right to a web page at the Department of Housing and Community Affairs, and folks just need to see that, and they can see how to apply. It's pretty simple.
And so following on that, Hans, do you think that rental assistance programs are sustainable in the long run, or how do you see this progressing?
No. I mean, in a normal year, we don't have $70 million a year, to provide rental assistance. We have a lot of the funding we've had is federal. So, I mean, but I'm optimistic that if we can help people clear their debt, then they'll have jobs and they can meet their rental obligations, and so they won't be at risk of eviction at all, because they're paying their rent in a timely manner. So again, it's a little bit, right now we have been able to provide for everyone who has applied, everyone who's eligible and has applied. We get applications from people in other states and things like that, but but I don't know yet, where we're going to be in 6 months or a year, and we're just going to have to continue to make this a high priority.
Okay, and if we have a last minute question on the Magruder School incident, do you have any words of wisdom of what you think we can do? I mean, is there either we have too much policing, or we don't have enough policing? What's the solution here? What do you think? I don't know
Thank
that I
you.
can have an answer, but what
Yeah,
do you think
that's
could be
a
done?
tragedy. First of all, just share a little information. The school has a police officer assigned to the school. It's called the community engagement officer. And that high school's officer was at another school at the time.
Okay.
And so that is a deputy sheriff. Magruder has a police officer assigned to the school. But assigned, all of those school police officers were assigned to several schools, like a high school and then some middle schools, or anywhere they got called, they were the expert officer. So at the moment of that horrible incident, that officer was in a different school, which is sort of normal because they have multiple assignments. The kids, as I'm sure you've heard, it's very distressing. They knew that one of their fellow students had been shot, and they did not call the police. They posted on Twitter. We are going through a terrible phase here of this pandemic. We're seeing a rise of violence. We're seeing it in the communities, and we're seeing it in the schools. And, on the long term, like, we've got to ban these guns that kids can make. These kids bought the parts for these guns, and they made them themselves. And this is not the first one of these incidents. There was an incident at Northwood High School, you might recall, maybe 2 months ago. A kid brought a gun in a backpack, and they got it, and then nothing happened. But that was also one of those do-it-yourself guns, call them ghost guns. So we've got to ban those, or else this is going to keep happening forever. And so that's really important. But I think we've got to have a much bigger effort around school safety. And I think we've gotten a little distracted by the issue of police officers in the schools. What we need is a school-based campaign to help kids and parents and all the employees work together to create a safer environment. And it's got to just be a bigger emphasis. So involving students in safety teams and safety campaigns, involving parents and getting information to them and having them volunteer. On Friday, I'm going to go volunteer in my son's school. I'm going to go and just be there. We've got to have more adults. Frankly, we got to get our kids into school. We got to get them back to their normal lives. I mean, how many of these incidents might have been avoided if kids had athletics again, if they had things to do? I think a lot of the glue has come apart. Jennifer, I'm going to leave that comment for you. I'm not allowed to say that, but in any event, I think we've got to hire more professionals in the schools, better trained security staff that know how to get to the kids who need those personal relationships. And I think ultimately it's about having trusted adults, having access to information in the school. So when there's a rivalry, or there's a dispute that is getting bad, some kid is going to tell somebody, and then we're going to be able to stop it from happening. Like, that is really, really essentially, that's the core of how we're going to actually solve it, is if we can get students connected to adults to share information to stop crime or stop violence.
And it's one of the things that came under kind of front and center with the Magruder incident is the Bill 4620, the you co-sponsor, where the school resource officers were prohibited. And the spirit of the law was to relocate those funds for health and other kind of services to provide a better environment for the children. Do you think anything has to change there, or do we need both? Do we need to go back to the SRO?
The challenge is the school has not hired the positions that are supposed to take the place of the police officers in the school. So you have to replace a police officer with a professional who is better at doing what that police officer was trying to do. I do believe that a different kind of professional will be more successful. I think a lot of kids don't want to talk to a police officer. I'm sorry. I think there's a little bit of a mythology here that, kids who are troubled, like to interact with a police officer. And I don't think that's true. I think they like to interact with an adult that they trust, which is more likely to be a coach or a teacher or something like that. So I actually think we will do a better job preventing violence if we have school security staff and counselors as our front line than a police officer. So yes, I think things need to change. I think we have to have better and different training for the security staff. And I think we got to get those positions in there. We got to get those counselors and those therapists in there, and they haven't been hired yet. So that's a problem. In the meantime, the county executive's model of, having police officers assigned to the school, but not stationed inside the school, that's an adequate transition. But I believe we will have more success with safety if we rely upon a different kind of professional. I don't think a police officer is necessarily the best way to get to kids and to help them, make better decisions and stay away from violence. And at the end of the day, I think the Magruder incident and any other incident shows that whoever encounters a violent situation, they're going to call 911. The police response comes from calling 911. It's not that first person who's there, it's everybody else who comes. And that's going to happen as fast if it's a security staff calling 911 or if it's a police officer. It's still going to be the same.
Okay, tell me about that electric guitar or whatever you have. Is it a mandolin that you have hanging behind you?
That is a, thank you for asking. That is a Gibson guitar. And that is one of about 10 or 11 that when I was at Rock the Vote, which does young voter engagement, we worked with Gibson and they gave us, you can see it has a little Rock the Vote logo on it.
Yeah.
They gave us a bunch of guitars to give to, one year we did a big gala of like our Rock the Nation Awards. And we gave one to Barack Obama and we gave one to John McCain. This was in 2005. And we had a couple left over, so I got one.
Yay, that's good.
Barack Obama used to display his in his office, and so it's pretty cool. Yes, I used to play when I was in college, especially. I was in a band, but then I broke my arm, and my friend took my spot, and he got the girl. So I kind of gave it up.
Okay. Well, thank you very much for being here with us. And we wish you well.
We
hope to see you again.
I'm going to type my email into the chat and my cell phone. And please reach out to me, Carlos, if you wanted to follow up on that point. I would be very interested. Jennifer, I'd love to talk about maybe the Silver Spring Incubator might be something you'd want to take a look at. I'm not sure. And Azita, I'm very interested in the talent development and helping people get access to the jobs that we have here. So it's been a big priority for me. So thank you so much for inviting me to be with you today.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for being with us today. Wish you the best.
Thank you very much. Really appreciate it.
Thank you,
Carmen, for the invitation. And thank you, Mauricio, for the invitation. It's great to get to know you better. And it's great to get a chance to really have like a full conversation. Well, it's a part of a big conversation, but it was a full part. And I look forward to working with you when I'm county executive. We're going to do great things.